On today's episode,
if we try to eat too perfectly all the time, like eventually we're gonna burn out. If I'm having ice cream, like I'm having a full thing of ice cream. There is no nutritional value in added sugar or in alcohol. That doesn't mean that I don't have it though. I think there is one thing. There is one thing, and that would be to eat
yum, delicious, skinny, hungry, cake, fat, scale, nutrition, fitness, strength, longevity, calories, body image, craving, lose weight.
What does it all mean?
Hungry, adjective, having a strong craving or desire. Stunt girl, noun, one who takes calculated risks to yield extraordinary or magical outcomes.
You're listening to the Hungry Stunt Girl podcast.
Here's your host, Heidi Germain Schnapoff.
Well, hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Hungry Stunt Girl podcast. I am Heidi Germain Schnapoff, professional stunt woman for film and television. So today I sat down with an incredibly knowledgeable nutritionist. She's also a super trainer, and I got to talk to her about some really fundamental nutrition concepts. Some things we talked about also were things that every person should be eating, as well as things everyone should pretty much be avoiding. She was the person that helped me when I was at my lowest point coming to terms with an eating disorder many years ago. And that was also the beginning of the Hungry Stunt Girl blog, which is the inspiration for this podcast. I was working out at a CrossFit gym in New York, and she just kind of appeared like some sort of mythical, magical fairy creature or an angel, perhaps, right when I needed some help. But she encouraged me to change my eating habits, and I decided to make these new eating habits a public challenge for 30 days in an effort to stay accountable, to share my journey, something that I thought would kind of help me change things around, which it did. And it's the first entry in that blog was the announcement of that. I believe maybe the second. Maybe it's the second one. You can check it out, actually. It's blogspot.com/thehungrystuntgirl or hungrystuntgirl.com. I'll put it in the show notes. It's pretty neat to go back and read it. But purely by coincidence, actually, I agreed to join a friend who was doing the Whole30 diet, which is more so a reset and an elimination diet. It's not necessarily meant to have you lose weight, although it would be very surprising if you didn't, if you're coming from, somewhere kind of where we all are with this whole quarantine. I call it the quarantine 15 that I put on. But I've been feeling a little bit sluggish and my joints have been sore. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a little reset myself. And I decided to join him, and not only join him, but kind of involve you. And if you'd like to join, you can check out the Facebook for The Hungry Stunt Girl. And I'll also have links on the Instagram page as well, and my website, www.thehungrystuntgirl.com. We're going to start it June 1st, which I believe that's today, the day that this comes out, Monday, June 1st. I'm doing a few modifications to the Whole30. I've done it before. You can totally stick to those guidelines. I'm going to post up my guidelines as well as some recipes if you'd like to join. But purely by coincidence, I'm doing this, starting this on Monday, and this happens to be the episode that Erica's on. So I also use Thrive Market. I love it. I wouldn't recommend anything on this podcast or to anyone ever if I didn't use it myself and really, really love it. I've been a member for actually quite a while, and it has seriously saved me even before the current pandemic with just delivering groceries. They were down for like a little while, I believe, in the beginning, but they're up and running again. And they carry some super healthy, tasty snacks, essentials, pantry items, apple cider vinegar, coconut oil, organic ghee, all that kind of stuff. I basically get all my produce and farm fresh, organic, free-range eggs from a local CSA, my meats from another online source, organic, grass-fed and finished. And I really hope not to set foot in a grocery store unless I absolutely have to for the next month for like lemons and limes or something like that. But again, if you want to join in, I'll have the information on our Facebook page, links in the Instagram, all at The Hungry Stunt Girl, Twitter, and through my website, thehungrystuntgirl.com. So before I start telling you some summer camp stories, let me get you guys right into my interview with Erica Giovinazzo.
Hungry Stunt Girl.
Today's guest holds a Master of Science degree in clinical nutrition from New York University and is a registered dietitian and certified specialist in sports dietetics. She holds a Level 2 CrossFit training certification, as well as numerous others such as rowing, weightlifting, and fitness programming. For over 5 years, she's been the general manager and head coach at Brick Los Angeles, teaching in both group and private environments. She's trained and advised numerous celebrities and was the nutrition advisor for John Cena's Body Change program. She was also a Nike master trainer, and as a dietitian, she works with everyone from people new to nutrition to professional athletes in her private practice, Erica's Edge. Her food and fitness challenge has provided her the opportunity to work with hundreds of people each year for the past 8 years. Please welcome my next guest, nutrition and fitness expert, Erica Giovinazzo. Did I say that right?
Giovinazzo.
Say it again?
Giovinazzo.
Giovinazzo. Erica Giovinazzo. There we go.
That was beautiful.
Sweet. I try. Kind of like has that like the double Z's like in pizza. So
Yep.
Anytime I see that, I'm like, well, at least I know how that goes.
You know how that
do
goes, yeah.
Well, I know how the pizza goes. I don't know about anything else. But hey, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This is awesome to have you. And I know that you are extremely knowledgeable in nutrition and fitness. And I know that you like food because you helped me many years ago when I first started the blog, The Hungry Stunt Girl, and helped me get my life kind of back on track. But before we get into any of that, why don't you tell me and everyone listening here what your background is, where you're from, and kind of the short version of where you got to where you are.
Okay. Well, short version of how I got to where I am. I grew up in New Hampshire. I went to school for acting and also for plant biology.
Where'd you go to school?
Minored in Italian. I went to the University of New Hampshire.
Oh.
And then
minored in Italian?
Yeah, I just basically did a little bit of everything while I was there.
Wow.
But not nutrition at all. And I came to New York at first because I wanted to be an actress. So I came and I was auditioning and I was in a conservatory and all of those different things that you do. And then at some point I thought that what I wanted to do was to give myself a career on the side so that I could then audition. And at around the same time I got into CrossFit, my sister told me about it. I started doing it and I immediately fell in love with it. And so I decided, because I love food and I love talking about food and I love the power of food, that I wanted to study it. So I got my master's in clinical nutrition from NYU. And as I was doing that, I kind of got more and more excited about nutrition and more excited about fitness. And so then after that, I went to an acting class again, thinking that, this is what I was going to do. I was going to do these two things. And then I kind of didn't love it as much as I did when I first moved to New York. And I realized that what I really love is nutrition and fitness. And I really, really love helping people to realize what they can do with their body and their health.
Oh, wow.
And so then I stopped acting and just fully dove into health and fitness.
And what made you choose NYU? Because you were in New York City, or you kind of researched their program and you thought it was enticing?
Yeah, I did. I researched a few different programs. I was in New York and I kind of wanted to stay there. And, since there are so many great options in New York as well, it was something that was possible. You could look at the different colleges and universities in New York and have an option there. And I loved their program, for a few reasons, but they cover a lot of different aspects of clinical nutrition, and I liked the clinical nutrition aspect because I think that when you get such a basis in the science of it, that you can then have a better understanding of like what you're reading and what you can then also even like alter as you grow in your practice. Because I don't necessarily practice all of the things that I was like necessarily taught or like what the USDA says. Like I might have some different opinions about like what like American nutrition science might say, but it's coming from a science base and a science understanding. It was within the program that I started working with people. Okay. And it was definitely with like a conversation of, I may not have all the answers just yet. Right. And so like, this is something that we can work through together, and, you know, to give me experience was really important. And I had a mentor there who really helped me. Like I got to watch her sessions working with people. So I could see like how she would speak to one person maybe differently than another. And because I think it's so important to get like firsthand, experience and like exposure to just like watching conversations like that happen, because everybody's different.
That's a great point. I mean, is there anything that you would recommend across the board? Is there something that no matter who the client is, you're just like, this is kind of a must for everyone? Or is there really not one thing?
I think there is one thing. I think there is one thing, and that would be to eat like real food.
Eating real food is just... And
that would be across the board, like no matter the reason for seeing me, like whether that's weight loss or whether that's sports performance or whether that's because of like a clinical condition, like everybody across the board should eat as much real food as possible.
That's a good rule. And explain what you mean by real food.
So real food to me is, like when they talk about shopping the perimeter of the grocery store a lot of the time, because that's where you'll find like fruits and vegetables. That's where you'll find your like meat and fish, but like as healthfully raised as possible. And, so to me, that's real food, is like what is natural, what is in nature.
Got it. So
versus like the things in a box and the things in cans and things like that.
Things you can't pronounce is another thing I hear a lot. If you can't pronounce it. I mean, actually, there are some things that I cannot pronounce that are pretty good for you, but I think that's a general rule of thumb.
General, that's a really good rule. And I think like if you look on a box and there's like a huge ingredient list in there, like that's kind of like a red flag. Sometimes it's not always though. Like sometimes those you could look at the list of ingredients and there could be all like good food products. But I think it is something like when you pick up something and it's like this long list, it's like, okay, what are all of those things in there? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I really work with people initially at, is like knowing what food they are eating, because it's not always realistic to assume that everyone is going to be cooking. Like not everyone is going to be cooking. People are going to be eating food out. People are going to be eating, or people maybe will be cooking, but maybe that food will be from a package. Mm-hmm. And so to learn and to like gain the knowledge of how to look at an ingredient label and how to look at a nutrition label and kind of like know the difference between, like, say, one thing that I think people learn a lot with me is the difference between sugars on the nutrition label versus sugars in the ingredient label.
Got it. As opposed to, so just to clarify, the nutrition facts section where it says sugars and the number and whatever fat content, grams, whatever, that's what you're talking about, is different than if you see in the ingredient list sugar or high fructose corn syrup or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
It might not necessarily have sugar in it, right?
Exactly, yeah. It might not have added sugar as an ingredient, but the food might naturally have sugar in it. Like if you think of an apple, like if it's like a 100% applesauce, like that will show sugar in the nutrition facts, but it's not going to show, it's not going to show added sugar or sugar in the ingredient list.
Hopefully. If it's a good applesauce.
Yeah, that's why I was like, if it's 100%. If it's not, then there might be sugar in the applesauce, and then pick a different applesauce.
I like, there's an organic applesauce that I absolutely adore that I get at Wegmans, and it just tastes like smushed up apples, and I feel better about having like these little, it looks like a little kid snack. Well, it is. I guess you put it in, kids' lunches or whatever, but I feel naughty when I'm eating it because it's in a little plastic container in my refrigerator, but really the ingredients are organic apples, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, some sort of natural preservative. But I know this from working with you that you've used macros as a guide for a lot of people. Would you say that a lot of the folks that you work with, you use that sort of system just for balancing? And of course, it would probably be different ratios for different people, I'd assume. But I don't really know. Is that the case? Or you want to explain a little bit about that and what macros are?
Yeah, so this is something that has definitely evolved in my practice since I started. Macros are short for macronutrients, and macronutrients are carbs, carbohydrates, fat, and protein. So they are, if you think of macro means big, and then nutrients. So they're like the big nutrients in our diet versus like micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals. So the macronutrients are the things that put calories into our diet also. Alcohol is technically a macronutrient also, but we don't really talk about that because there's no nutritional value in it.
Got it.
At least we're not putting it into our like daily diet.
Well, what category would alcohol fall into then?
Well, it technically is no, it's actually its own category. So it would be carbs, fat, protein, and alcohol. But we just kind of like put it in, just like put it to the side.
Got it.
And then there are some forms of alcohol that have carbs in it. So like beer or wine is going to be part alcohol and part carbs.
Or a margarita, because there's fruit in it.
Or a margarita, that's going to have, a lot of carbs too.
Yeah.
I feel like I got very sidetracked. Okay, so
sorry, me with the alcohol. I don't know.
It's okay.
Here we go.
So it's kind of evolved and how much I've used them since I started. I would say though that honestly, I probably work with like 50% of my clients track their macronutrients, and about probably 50% don't. It takes a lot of work, and it's not the best method for everyone. Some people need, like a lot of people need just like kind of more basic guidelines, like how to create a healthy meal, like how to create a balanced meal with protein and fat and carbs, and maybe not such specific amounts. People who are like very motivated and people who like data, like A-type personalities, sports, athletes like this, that group of people really likes to work with macros because it's like very exact. Percentages definitely are different depending on the goal, but and their weight, but also like the biggest factor that will change macros would be like how active that person is. And the kind of like what their goals are with there. So if someone is, working out for 3 hours a day or something like that, they're going to need a lot more carbs than someone who's doing a half hour or an hour or something like that.
And what would you say the majority of your clients that come to you, what are common goals? Is there something that runs across the board, or is it kind of half and half, or everybody wants to be skinny? Like,
well, I don't think luckily, I don't know about luckily, but like I feel like I work with a lot of people who just want like ideal body composition. And so body composition to me is like your percent body fat. So maybe not necessarily like they want to lose weight or I have some people who want to gain weight. But like their overall percent body fat, they want to get that down. And then there's another segment of the population that I work with that is like very interested in using nutrition for performance, for like sports performance.
And do you deal with folks who maybe have some sort of a health issue, or maybe a gluten sensitivity, or someone who is immunocompromised, or lupus, or anything? Do people come to you for that reason, for improving health or health conditions, or, I'm diabetic and I want to be able to play with my kids and not pass out, or, something like that? Do you have folks that come to you for that as well?
Yeah, I do. And that's like really what my background was in at NYU. And I've worked with all types of people in that regard. Mostly like you see like chronic problems of like diabetes, type 2 diabetes mostly.
Oh, wow.
And heart disease.
Type 2 diabetes is, I call that the earned diabetes, because I don't, that's something
that's like kind of a good way of explaining it. Yeah.
So that's something that you're not necessarily born with, or is innately in your system. It's something that is an onset, or
It's usually a result of poor diet and being overweight or being obese. It's generally the cause of it, and kind of taxing your body with too much food and too much sugar. And so your insulin, you're less sensitive to the needs of insulin, or like what insulin does.
So on my last episode, actually, I interviewed an actress who has type 1 diabetes, and was kind of delving into a little bit about how insulin affects our bodies and whatnot. Can you kind of maybe touch on that a bit, about how our food affects our insulin, and how that affects in turn our body and our composition?
Yeah, for sure. I like to think about, so when I've made this analogy before, I like to think about it as like a key system. Okay. So what happens basically is we eat and our blood sugar goes up. It's going to go up high or low, depending on the food that we eat. So if I eat like, what's like a pure sugar example? Like a pixie stick. I used to love pixie sticks when I was a kid.
See, I'm thinking like gummy worms over here. I'm like,
okay, yeah, gummy worms too. Gummy worms, any like candy, and I'm kind of trying to take fat out of it, because fat kind of changes it a little bit, because like otherwise we could talk about ice cream. But so if you think about like a pixie stick or like Twizzlers or something like that kind of thing is, I know, I love ice cream.
I can't. Every single like person I've spoken to on this podcast so far, ice cream has come up, and I'm sure we'll come back to ice cream. I'm making a note of it just to make sure that we do.
We can do that. Ice cream is definitely my go-to, like not the healthiest food. So you eat something that is, say, like very high in sugar, and so the sugar in your blood is going to go up. Then what happens is that your blood wants to be at the same level of sugar all of the time. So if our blood sugar goes up, our body wants to bring it back to what it's like baseline, what it should be at all the time, which in like science is called homeostasis. It's like, this is the level that your blood sugar should be at. So in order to get our blood sugar down, insulin is produced by the pancreas. So the pancreas sends out insulin, which is a hormone, which is like a signal. Okay. And that signal tells your body to take the sugar away out of the blood, and then it goes into different parts of the body. So the insulin is kind of like, I think of it like a key to like the door of our like organs that like opens up the door to the organ, so the blood or the sugar can get out of the blood and then goes into like our muscles or our liver or something like that.
And having an excess amount results in excess fat somehow.
Yeah. So if we have too much sugar and we don't use it, it gets changed into fat. And the insulin aspect of it is kind of like, if you keep making your body make more and more and more insulin, like if you ate sugar all day long, every single day, your body is just constantly producing insulin to get it out of the blood and to get it out of the blood, period. Eventually, your body gets tired of like listening to the insulin. And that is kind of like how type 2 diabetes gets started. Is your body is like, I'm not like, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Like, you've knocked on my door too many times. And so now we're just going to leave the sugar in the blood. And so their blood sugar is higher than it should be. And then you have the negative effects of type 2 diabetes.
Which are...
You could have neuropathy, so that's like nerve ending damage.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that's like that's like worst case scenario, or like later on down the line when sometimes people have to get a amputation of like a foot or something like that, which really stinks. And just general amputation stinks.
Amputation stinks.
Facts.
Make t-shirts. Avoid sugar. Amputation stinks. That's my new t-shirt.
Also like it just causes general inflammation throughout the body, and that can have any of the negative effects that happen.
So general inflammation in the body. So we're talking muscles, joints, everyday activities that'll become hindered by this as well.
Exactly. Yep. And one of the main things that I've found with people when taking added sugar out of their diet is like their joints feel better and their energy levels are higher.
I notice myself if I have before mentioned ice cream the night before or any sort of sugar, especially at night, because I don't have the opportunity to, quote, burn it out of my system or allow my body through exercise to kind of metabolize it. There's even sometimes when I do, I wake up and I feel like I have balloons in my joints and I'm just sore. I'm getting older, but still, if I don't have a lot of sugar throughout the day, I definitely wake up feeling a lot less stiff in the morning. Is there something that you would, now he said across the board, something you would recommend for just about everyone is to eat, or for everyone is to eat real foods and whole foods. Is there a particular food or something that you would say across the board avoid, that you would say, I don't think any human being should ever have to eat this, or this should not be in any human diet?
Well, there is no nutritional value in added sugar or in alcohol.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I don't have it, though.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. But like, if you're talking about like, they're not so deadly that I'm like, oh, if you have these things, like, I mean, the negative effects can be there, but it kind of depends on how much you have of it as well. But those are two things that like don't inherently have any positive nutritional value. I think ideally, like, I mean, it's going to depend on the person a lot because everybody is different. But I think one of the, like, for general recommendations, I try to say, like, to allow yourself a treat a week. And that could be, like, whether that's alcohol or that's ice cream or, like, a little bit of both. That's okay. But I think once a week is okay for sustainability, because that's also important. If we try to eat too perfectly all the time, like eventually we're going to burn out. And then that's when people go into yo-yo dieting and they just like are like, I don't want to do this anymore at all. And then are just unhealthy.
It becomes too much. Yeah. If someone were to say, well, I only have one thing a little bit every night, does that seem to be more of an issue? Or would you find, I find it to be more of an issue when I'm giving very like off the cuff, just advice, Heidi, to you, not nutritionist. I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor or an astronaut. But
I wish I was an astronaut.
I know. I think about that, but I get car sick. So I don't think I do well in a spacecraft.
Maybe not.
So maybe that's not the best. But yeah, I feel the idea of kind of staying cleaner and correct. If this is not a good, this is totally just a guess. And it's something that I've found in my own body and just of people that I know that I've worked out with or that I have worked with or talked to, in that having something maybe once a week as opposed to every day, better for your overall health, because those clean days really add up and they start to really do good things to your body. Whereas, having a little sugar every day, you wake up every day with sore joints, for instance, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate?
It does. Yeah. There's some, I think, kind of pros and cons to both methods. Because I do know people who are very successful at allowing themselves to have just a little bit. I have found that most people have a hard time with just a little bit.
That's the issue, not so much the everyday thing, but the little bit part of it.
Yeah. Like, I know someone who could have a square of chocolate a day and then never have a large portion of anything. Right? And so the majority of the people can't do that. I can't do that. If I'm having ice cream, I'm having a full thing of ice cream, I'm not having 2 spoons of it. I'm going to have a serving of it.
Right.
So and I think most people are like that. And so the harm or the con to trying to do that, if I were to try to have just a little bit each day, if I were to try to go to the freezer and just have 1 scoop of ice cream each day, even if I'm successful for say a week, that spoon is probably going to eventually be a bigger spoon. And then it's going to be 2 spoons. And then it's going to be, I'm just going to have a little bit of this in the morning, and then also a little bit of this at night. And usually what I see in people is this avalanche effect of just a little bit turns into all of a sudden now you're having something every day.
And you're buried in ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds delightful.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. Okay, well, those are the negative effects of ice cream, but I need to know, I think this is going to become just a question I have to ask everyone, but what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
So I'm in Los Angeles, and there's a place called Salt and Straw, which
yes.
actually they're in other places. They're in Portland and Seattle, I think. But oh man, have you had Salt and Straw?
I have. They have such unusual, delicious flavors that I can't. I wouldn't be able to pick actually. Now that you mention it, but what's your favorite? Or you know what? Give me your top 2 because they're so different. Unless you have one.
Well, I have one from Salt and Straw.
Okay.
So they have different flavors each month, and the flavors are super creative. And they have this one in May that's I can't remember the full name of it, but it's rhubarb tart with an anise crumble or something like that. And it's just it's ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. Are you more of a fruity person or the chocolatey person?
No, I'm in all of them, all of the above person.
But your favorite is this one currently?
But my favorite is this rhubarb one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm never disappointed because they only have it for that 1 month. So if I go in a different month, I have to get a different flavor, and I'm never disappointed. So it's okay.
Okay. Fair enough.
What's your favorite flavor of ice cream, Heidi?
This is the hardest question because, excuse me, it changes. My favorite flavor changes based on the time of month. Around my menstrual cycle, I am more into the chocolate and the cookies and chocolate, the cookies and cream or peanut butter cup kind of flavors, which
that makes sense.
There's one that I just started obsessing over, Netflix and chilled. It's the Ben & Jerry's flavor. And what's the other? I do like Chubby Hubby. Jen Bartels reminded me of that one last week. Yeah, I think the Netflix and chilled one is my current favorite. However, I'm a really big fan of a strawberry cheesecake. Normally that kind of thing. I really like cookies in my ice cream, or dough, or cookie dough.
Yes.
Cookie dough and something like that. But on the Salt and Straw spectrum, I mean, they're lavender, honey, sage or something that I've had. I'm just making that up, but something like that.
No, they have honey lavender. That's a really good flavor.
It just, it's something that I wouldn't want to eat a pint of it every day, but it's something that's so unique that you just, flavor explosion, man. They're so good.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
I could go on about I could have an entire, I'm probably going to have an entire episode about ice cream. That might even be my topic for this episode. Who knows? If you have a client, do you also take into consideration their sleep schedule in addition to obviously their exercise regimen or lack of?
Yes. So there are a few things that I like to try to focus on depending on where the person is at. Some people I've worked with for years. And then of course, some people I maybe only work with once or twice. But in addition to food, if we're talking about overall health and even sports performance, food is important, of course. What they're doing training wise is important, but also sleep, like mindset is important. So I encourage meditation. Hydration is super important, like making sure they're getting enough water. And all of those things are going to have an effect on how you feel. And if you're performing, then how you perform. Sleep wise, I've heard that it's, slightly different for people, but it's like somewhere in the 7 to 9 hour range. And the more intense your days are, and like the more you train, kind of the more rest you need, as that's your opportunity for your body to recover. So definitely I'm looking for people to ideally get somewhere between like the 7 and 9 hour range when possible.
Hey, I apologize for the interruption. I just had to let you know that Pittston Ketchup is still offering 10% off your entire order if you use the discount code HungryStuntGirl at checkout at PittstonKetchup.com. That's PittstonKetchup, that way you spell ketchup.com. Once again, the code is HungryStuntGirl, all one word, at checkout for your 10% discount. I want to shift this back to you now for a second. So Well, not back to you. Let's talk about you again. What are you specifically doing for your own health and well-being during this, pandemic where we're pretty much kind of locked in for a while? And how are you feeding both yourself and feeding your soul? You mentioned meditation as an anecdote for a client, but do you also do that? So food and soul.
Yeah, for sure. Those are, that's like the foundation right there. From the food perspective, to be honest, like at the beginning of this, I had a little bit of a hard time. Like I felt like my food was a little bit all over the place. I wasn't eating as healthy as I normally eat. And then like a few weeks into that, I was like, well, you don't feel really great anymore. And so let's get your food back on track. And so I started recording my food again. So tracking my macronutrients, tracking my carbs, tracking my fat, tracking my protein, all of that, because I know for me that helps the most. What
do you track through? I meant to ask you this earlier. Do you have a specific app that you use or that you would recommend?
Yeah, I like MyFitnessPal, and I usually recommend that for people. Their database is really large, and so you can pretty easily find the foods that you want to enter. And if no one's ever used it before, it totals up your carbs and your protein and your fat and your calories. And you can set specific goals for yourself, so you know how much you have left in the day. I like to plan before, so I'll usually set up my food the night before for the next day in the app so that I can like make sure I hit the numbers as precisely as possible. Right now, though, because I have a little more time, I don't have to do that. So now I can since I have more time, I can do it during the day. But yeah, I like to plan. I'm a planner.
That's great.
Yeah, and then
I wish I could do that.
So now I'm kind of more on like what I normally recommend, which is like 6 days of like healthy eating and then 1 day where I eat ice cream.
Right. So you only eat ice cream 1 day a week?
Yeah.
Wowie.
Yeah.
Good
there
on
have
ya.
even been periods of times I've gone for like a month with no ice cream.
Oh my goodness. But I don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. I understand. I don't understand.
And then I sleep a lot. The sleep has been great since quarantine. And I normally like when I was having to go to the gym, I would wake up at like 3:45 to 5 in the morning, so early. And now I don't have to. So now I feel like I'm getting a full night of sleep each night, which is about 8 hours. Yeah. And I read a lot on like things that are good for my soul, on like kindness and compassion, and like meditate and journal about those things as well. I like to start my day with that or end my day with that, but sometimes it happens in the middle of the day too. It's not always like a precise schedule for that stuff.
Do you have a schedule that you've put yourself kind of on?
In this period of time, I'm not in quite as much of a schedule as when we're not staying at home, because there is like a little bit more flexibility. But even still, like I would say there is like I do things pretty much the same day within like a 1 to 2 hour period of time.
Okay, I have a question for you now that I have a hard time answering this, and I'm curious to see what your answer is. But do you have a favorite junk food? Other, obviously, ice cream. But
I was like, other than ice cream?
Other than ice cream, if there's something. And if it is ice cream, and of this junk food, be it ice cream or otherwise, do you have a healthy version that you like or that you can make? Or that is out there?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say this is my favorite, but this is something that definitely comes to mind as like a happy comfort junk food, which are nachos. And
nachos.
I think that they can be made in like a fairly healthy way. It takes a lot of like portion controlling because chips, I think, are one thing that is easy to eat like so many of. But I think that it's possible, like at home, to make it like in a healthier version because you can control the amount of cheese that you use. You could use vegan cheese to cut down on the dairy. You can control the number of chips that you use, and then also like the things that you put on top of it, of course.
What are your go-to nachos that if you were to make them at home?
Oh, if I were to make it at home, let's start with that. Okay. I do like a little bit of mix of vegan cheese and regular cheese.
Why the mix?
So I don't do so well with a lot of dairy, even though I do eat ice cream. There is a contradiction there. But like my body doesn't love it.
Got it.
So I try to have as little of it as possible.
Got it. In general, dairy or just cheese specifically, or dairy in general?
No, dairy in general.
Okay.
Yeah, dairy in general. I like to do like roasted cauliflower or broccoli on it to make it a healthy nacho.
Sounds pretty good. A healthy nacho.
Yeah.
Average nacho.
It's nacho average nachos.
And what kind of chips do you use?
I like the Siete chips. They're like made from almond flour.
I just refilled my Thrive. I love Thrive Market, by the way. I've been ordering any snacks through them because I can get almond flour crackers or the Siete chips, or I have all the varieties of those, or the paleo puffs. Oh my gosh, they're so good.
And then like the Siete, like I do tacos a lot. Like I'll do egg tacos a lot for breakfast.
Egg tacos?
So I'll do like 2 eggs with like the Siete tortillas. The Siete tortillas. That's a bit often breakfast.
That's right. They have the whole tortilla deal. Dealios. Right.
That's
they
really
have a couple
good.
different kinds, right? I think they have almond flour. I think I saw like a coconut flour one or something.
Yeah, there's cassava, there's cashew flour.
Cassava.
Yeah, I don't know how you say it.
I don't know. I just mix it up every time I say it. That way I'm sure I'm saying it right at least once.
At some point.
At some point. I'm pretty sure I said it right. I pronounced it correctly. And then you were going to say there are nachos that you get someplace that...
Oh, yeah. There's this restaurant in LA that makes cauliflower nachos, which is why I decided to start putting cauliflower on my nachos. And it's like cauliflower and kale, and it's so good. Oh, my God.
That's not a nacho.
I know it sounds like it shouldn't be the best nacho, but it's actually my favorite nacho.
No way. Where
Nachos.
Is it?
It's a place called Petty Cash.
Cash.
In West Hollywood, Los Angeles area. Cauliflower nachos.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing that down. I'll put a
So
link in
LA.
there for them. It's so LA. Cauliflower nachos. Are they still open? Are they doing like takeout?
Mm-hmm. They are doing takeout now.
Good to know. There you go. Petty Cash, LA, West LA. Obviously, you're going to have to work that off. So what kind of workouts are you doing these days? being home and not in the gym?
Well, I'm very fortunate to be able to have some equipment that I could take home with me.
Oh, nice.
So like I have a rower in my apartment. I have a barbell in my apartment. I just have to be a little careful.
Work? Yeah.
Yeah. There isn't like dropping and slamming weights. That's for sure. But I can do controlled movements and using tempos and things like that.
Using tempos as in...
Using tempo in movement. So slowing down like the eccentric part of a movement. So say I'm going to do a deadlift and I pick up the bar and then go slowly back down to the ground. So it requires the muscles to do a little more work. It helps to develop strength, especially when you don't have to use as much weight to do it.
You mentioned meditation. Are you also doing some sort of like a meditation app or just journaling, reading, anything like that to kind of help your brain deal with what's happening right now? I mean, it's a lot. It isn't and it is. It's just there's a lot going on that I feel we can't really control. So that seems to be an important aspect.
Yeah. But it's important to have a way to harness like happiness and like quietude when you don't have that thing also. Like you should be able to do it when you're kind of on your own. I've used apps before. I've used the Headspace app before.
Yes, I have that as well.
But mostly now my meditations are just on my own. I use, I think the things that I read as inspiration. So I like to read a lot of what His Holiness the Dalai Lama writes. He has a book called The Book of Joy, which he wrote with Archbishop Tutu. And he has a book called The Art of Happiness. And they both have meditations in there that you can like read and like describe how to do. But then I think there's also I think there's something to be said for like contemplative meditation, where you read something like that is like meaningful and soulful and spiritual, and then take some time to think about it and to think about how that looks for you and like how you process that. So if it's an idea about, forgiveness or something like that, then to sit and do like a 10-minute, 15-minute meditation on like forgiveness in your life, maybe like who you can forgive, and think of like more of like a contemplative meditation. I think those are really important. That's really good. Nice balance too, kind of round out your physical and the food. And sometimes just thinking about all that stuff, it's nice to be able to focus on something a little more internal that there's no right or wrong answer, It's just thinking of forgiveness or whatever that might be for you, or praying, or if you're more of a religious person. I'm going to wrap it up. And before we do, if you had all the time in the world to cook something at home and unlimited ingredients, and someone was like, what do you want? What do you want to cook? What ingredients would you have? Or would you just call it the pizza joint and be like, I just want to order a pizza? No, actually, it kind of brings me back a little bit to when we were talking about how things are a little bit different in quarantine, is now I have more time to cook recipes, which is really fun, because I normally cook, but a lot of the time when I'm like busy and like just running back and forth from work, my food is like chicken and broccoli like sauteed in a pan and just like kind of boring, which I don't mind, because I think like when you're eating whole foods, they taste really good, but it's also like really nice to like make a recipe of things. Right. And so I've been having I've really, really enjoyed being able to do that now. But I think like what I always come back to is, and this is like how I got into cooking in the first place, was like my mom and my grandmother are amazing Italian cooks. So nice. I like it when like I can make like pasta fresh, like make the dough myself and make like meatballs by hand. Like I would make homemade pasta and meatballs and like homemade tomato sauce, and it would be so delicious. Man. Yeah. That's not like junk food, but like that's decadent to me. That's home right there. That's cooking on the stove. All, I can just remember even growing up with my mom with the sauce on the stove. Some people call it gravy,
We're just a sauce family, you know.
We call it sauce too.
Cooking on the stove all day from the time I wake up in the morning. If it's a Saturday or Sunday, we weren't really like a Sunday meal kind of family. It doesn't matter what day it was. Whatever day my mom got up in the morning and just put that sauce on the stove, and you just smelled like the oregano first thing in the morning.
You smell it, and you smell it all day.
All day.
Like tomato and basil all day long. It's like, to me, that's like the best smell. And then to like make pasta by hand, it takes so much work, and it just like is so satisfying to like throw some flour on the table and like throw some like eggs in and water and like just like work it like because you have to knead it, like you have to work, like your forearms get tired.
Get that gluten going.
and to like see and then like taste the finished product of that, I think is just like so wonderful.
Oh wow. I haven't done that, and I don't think I've ever made homemade pasta and the sauce together in the same dish. I think we've dabbled with making homemade pasta, and I made a sauce for it. Did like this sausage, broccoli, creamy, delicious sauce. But yeah, just doing my mom's sauce. Yeah. See, that's gonna be something. I'm starting Monday. I guess today's Monday, the day that this is coming out. So today is my first day officially on. I'm doing a version of the whole 30 days.
Oh, good.
Just to clean out some of the ice cream I've been having in the past several weeks. And
see, you can do 30 days of no ice cream.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no ice cream and no pizza. Come on.
It's true.
No. Well,
it's tough.
If people wanted to get in touch with you or to follow you in your adventures in life and coaching and nutrition, do you have some place where they can reach you, social media or otherwise?
Yeah, my social media, Instagram is probably best, and it's Erica's Edge. So ERICASEDGE. I also have a website that you can look at. I'm not on it quite as much as I should be. So Instagram is probably better.
Got it. Sweet. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Heidi.
I mean, I have so many other questions. I'm so grateful to you for not only being here today, but for coming into my life back in 2012, 2013, when I needed it most. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heidi.
All discussions on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and are not meant to replace medical advice. Contrary to popular belief, Heidi is not a doctor or a nutritionist or an astronaut. Although, that would be kind of cool. Heidi, maybe you should be an astronaut.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. And if you could do me one super huge favor and click that subscribe button as well as clicking that 5-star rating, I would be so grateful to you. Support comes from sharing this podcast and ratings from people like you and helps keep this podcast afloat. So thanks again. And remember, stay hungry.